Oh, dough, it's Fido! Hey you thinkers, I'm Thinkafurr. We've talked about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet previously, covering the two legendaries Koraidon and Miraidon, but when I saw this cute little bun of joy, I just had to boot the snoot!
Oh, ain't you the cutest little bun of fun? Subscribe, little dodo, subscribe. Good Fido, click the bell icon, Fido.
Fido is a fairy-type Pokemon with the ability Own Tempo, something we saw in Gen 3, preventing the Pokemon with that ability from getting confused. This clever puppy Pokemon has a whole bunch of new old tricks up its sleeve. Where's that pause? According to new lore drops, Fido has a moist, smooth skin with elastic qualities, being firm and soft when it wants to be. Makes sense, I guess. Fido is literally a doe-made doggo, but this has implications. Some I'm kind of a little bit vexed to deep dive on, but oh well, what would this channel be if it didn't overanalyze and overthink everything? Case in point, if it evolves, will it become bread? How would it evolve? Toss it in an oven, maybe? Nah, too anticlimactic for Nintendo or Game Freak. Maybe likely a volcano? Also, if the second Evo line is bread, will it be called a bread hound? Like a red hound, except it's bread now because it got cooked. Oh man, that's dark. Breadful even. But does that mean its third form is gonna be toast? That idea might be a Shih Tzu. Hey, maybe its typing might change from fairy to fire over time or become a fairy-fire dual type? I guess maybe it might depend on the cooking method, maybe? Anyway, before I forget, more lore drops from the official Scarlet and Violet website explain that Fido ferments things in its vicinity using the yeast in its breath. Oranges and grapes are fruit that are themed massively in the symbology that juxtaposes both Scarlet and Violet, separating each title accordingly. Additionally, yeast is a key ingredient in making alcohol, especially in fermenting grapes into wine. Even oranges can be fermented into wine. It's almost a pat on the back to Game Freak and Nintendo, but Pokemon's historical references are incredible. Fido is literally a wine-making fermenting machine and so much more because yeast is used in a lot of cooking and baking. Breads, cakes, biscuits, cookies, crackers, and so much more. Especially in breads. And where do we see heaps of wine and bread depicted historically? Medieval Europe. Since the medieval periods of the 1400s, bread and wine has been consumed to this very day. Medieval Spain and Portugal, the areas of Europe in which the new region named Paldea has apparently been depicted in. Spain itself had a massive part within the events spanning the 1400s till the 1800s, with the Spanish Inquisition and the monarch's rule rise and fall as liberalism hit. More on that in a different video. It makes perfect sense to see old faithful Fido as the backbone to Paldea's food and produce. Oh, speaking of which, did you know the origin of the name Fido comes from a real dog? Historically, Fido was an Italian dog that became famous in 1943 during the Second World War for its unwavering loyalty to its master. Always, Fido would appear and greet its owner at a specific bus stop every single day. But one day, its owner tragically passed away from an air raid. Fido would proceed to go to that same bus stop every single day for 14 whole years, more than 5,000 times, hoping to see if his master was home until his final days. He was so beloved and iconic of a pooch, an entire monument was raised in his honor. It makes sense to see Fido as Aldea's goodest boy, filling the bustling streets with food, warm bread, rich wines, and baked wholesome goodness. Additionally, one more thing that makes this a much more important point, we've all been speculating this Paldea region as Spain, and it really does fit the bill, but there are so many things from Italy cropping up. Fido can ferment grapes and oranges into wine, but why orange wine? Well, if you look at the historical origins of wine, you'll find both grape and orange wine dates back thousands of years to Georgia, Italy in its earliest physical findings. However, conflicting with this, we see wine also existing within the ancient traditions of Spain in the periods in which New Spain emerges in the 1500s. Honestly, I wouldn't get your hopes up at Paldea Paldea being in Italy. Grape and orange wine was incredibly popular in both areas historically, and the same goes for bread. Pretty much bread can be seen all across Europe, with bread also being produced within the Iberian Peninsula of Spain. These folks had already mastered the fermentation process before the Romans had arrived, and when Romans had named Spain as Hispania in 218 BC, bread was already being created with yeast. Now coming full circle here, Fido's breath literally is the yeast that makes Paldea's staple food and beverages, which is almost certainly within Spain. As a neat side fact, the Romans actually took this method and improved output with the use of mills and ovens, all seen throughout Rome, which, funnily enough, is essentially Italy. Clearly, there's historical crossovers with the Pokemon Fido that are as tasty as the wholesome bread it can create. This mon's lore should certainly age like a fine wine. Thinkers, I loved covering the history of Europe, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is really hitting the history books hard, and I could promise you, there is definitely going to be a massive historical overview of the region of Paldea very soon as a video here as a Pokemon theory, and also more Zelda theories too. Don't you worry, Breath of the Wild 2, I haven't forgotten about you.